It's okay, it's okay.
Thank you very much, and welcome everybody to the EU LCS post-game lobby. After the opening day of the summer split, I'm Sjokz, and I'm joined by Ender and also by Caps from Fnatic, and Deficio will be joining us in just a bit. But welcome, gentlemen. The first day is on the books. Caps, unfortunately, you guys didn't manage to win that very first game. Well, from your perspective, didn't go as planned?
So right from the beginning, there was a bit of a weird start because they invaded us, so it kind of slowed down the whole set game plan we had coming into the game. But then the real issue was like later on when they started diving our bot, and when I died at the red was like a huge turning point, I feel like, because we never really managed to get to the point where I got my items and we could like shield me up and I could deal damage and stuff.
So when you look back in retrospect, I don't want to say underestimate Misfits, but this seems to be a strategy that very much relies on the fact that you get that good start and you keep it going. So do you think the strategy was at fault here, or just the way you guys played the early game?
I mean, I think we could definitely win this because like we have played it in scrims this week, and maybe it's not the optimal way to play right now, but we could definitely win this. I think we made some very clear mistakes that kind of cost us the game. If the draft maybe made it too easy to make mistakes is another question, but we could definitely have won this if we played our best.
It definitely looked very interesting, and even when you guys were at a huge deficit in the late game team fights, it looked like you guys knew what you wanted to do in the team fights, but that you lacked a bit of damage because they were so far ahead. Ender, what did you make of it? This was a strategy you actually talked about at the top of the day.
Right. This is a strategy that we were sort of expecting to see today. We only got to see it the one time, and I think that when you run this kind of a strategy, a lot of the ability to shut it down comes in the enemy team being very proactive in the early game, and that's why Misfits going for that crazy level 1 invade and then repeating it when the next time that red buff spawned was really impressive to me to see them shut down that strategy. Yeah,
I gotta agree with that. Just the fact in general that Misfits, they seem to have your number when it comes to regular season games. Caps, what's up with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit interesting to see why they win so much against us. I guess it's probably just low sample size. Last year when it was best of 3, I remember they lost every time we played, so I guess best of 1 is just their thing.
What they're really good at. I see that Deficio is ready, so come and join us, Martin. Join the panel. There we go.
Better late than never.
Better late than never. Of course, just came off the gas. A bit of a pat on the knee there. What is it that you want to say to him? That was rough?
I really respect the fact you're sitting here right now. I think most players after a game like that would not have come on PGL. So a lot of respect.
Thanks.
The strategy needed a little bit of work, I guess.
That's up in the air. They said it was still winnable.
You can definitely win it.
Yeah, I mean, we could definitely win with it, but
if he gets ahead early, then like you can't kill Kaiser.
The thing is, I guess, like a week ago, we kind of saw like all the crazy things. We saw like volleyball carry and stuff like this pop up everywhere. And coming to this week, we just wanted to try a bunch of things. And maybe towards the end of the week, we started realizing that this is not exactly what everyone else plays, like what we are playing. But we're still winning some of the like most of our games. And I think especially this game, there were a lot of unnecessary deaths, and even then it was still like somewhat close team fights. So if we didn't take all those unnecessary deaths, I think we could definitely have won against them.
When it comes to Fnatic, I'm inclined to say it's only the first game of the split, and it's a bit unfair because for all other teams almost, I'm like, well, they need to win those first games of the split because we saw how close things were in spring. But I'd love to know from the panel, like from Ender, when you see a game like this and you know how Fnatic ended the spring split, it just makes you kind of say, oh, well, they'll bounce back.
Right, and I think that, Caps hit on something good. They're willing to experiment early on in the season, and if there's ever a time to do that, that time is now, and respect to Fnatic for going for something a little bit unorthodox that no other team was willing to play today. Didn't work out, but if there's ever a time, it's now.
All right.
We won't panic until like week 7 or something when they've got time every game. We kind of like, oh, okay, maybe they don't make playoffs, but the only thing I just want to follow is bot lane meta and what that means for Reckless specifically. Because Reckless has been a huge part of why Fnatic has found so much success if you look at last split and even also in some split together with you, of course, and the supporting team around. We always talked about it was 2 carries and 3 supports on Fnatic side. Now it's 4 supports and 1 carry. I just want to see if the trend continues being not necessarily only 80 carries in the bottom lane, will Reckless then, based on his solo queue, be an Ornn player and then a Janna player and then a Lulu player, or will he eventually, if the meta goes there or if he just decides, become an 80 carry once again? Because typically when Fnatic has Reckless on 80 carry and Caps on another carry, they win every late game in Europe. Not this case.
I mean, I think it's pretty clear that Reckless is like, or was, I guess, the best AD carry in Europe. So it's definitely gonna be interesting to see if he's now the best timer and the best and stuff like this. But I'm confident. I'm confident in the Heimer. So
yeah, it takes him down a notch in terms of skill versus other AD carries. If it's a Heimer versus Heimer, I'm probably putting my money on Yanin then.
So if we'd have to compare it, like Reckless having to play these other champions, it's pretty difficult for any AD carry, I think that. But if we compare it to Caps, you getting to play different things out loud, AD carry in the mid lane, it seems like for mid laners, it's an easier jump. Is that correct?
I mean, that's not really the biggest jump. I guess that's like the thing with whole smite thing and stuff like this. But I guess throughout time, all champions have kind of been viable, you know, in mid lane. And I think every single champion I wouldn't have a problem playing. So it's not like I'm specialized in one thing. In a sense.
I think one of the very fun things to see is not the mechanical part of playing a new champion, because like Reckless and so on, most AD carries can do that. It's more the mindset. When you pick a Janna, compared to playing whatever AD carry it is just such a different game you're playing. All of a sudden, like your laning phase is just so weird. Janna Rakan, like that is a weird lane to play if you're used to playing an AD carry. And then in a team fight, your job is not to start hitting people. It's literally to be like, where's Caps? Okay, shield Caps. Okay, got to ult for Caps now. And
it's
that's just
a good lesson in humility, it seems.
It's just completely different mindset, and that's the one I think is going to be the hardest for people who are going to play the support in the bottom lane. Heimerdinger. Shown you can still be a carry. You can be in the front line smacking people left and right. Janna, not so much.
Yeah, personally for me, I think one of the most interesting things to track in this new sort of meta, when there's no marksman in the game, how do the team fights play out? Because it's all over the place. There's a lot more skill shots flying around, bruisers in your face, and it doesn't feel like that traditional front to back anymore. It's a lot more about individual outplays and, you know, innovation outplays in those games.
Seems like that's something that Caps would be pretty good at. We saw it like with the Kai'Sa even in this game.
This is Caps meta.
Yeah.
It is Caps meta. I already said from the start, I'm going to say it again, I've already voted for MVP of the split. It is locked in place.
The Yasuo ban kind of hurt me, but
you banned it yourself.
You banned it yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
And you banned your story as well.
It hurt my soul.
So yeah, your coaches need to stop banning you out. But anyway, that name is locked. It's in the box already.
Yeah. Speaking about that Yasuo and just your performance at MSI, we asked a couple of players what they thought about your play at MSI. You may not have seen this, so we're going to run it again. Let's take another look.
It was pretty insane, actually. That's the best Yasuo I've ever seen. Obviously, his play was clean. He was just styling on the kids.
Caps' Yasuo is so clean that it was filthy.
So clean that it was dirty. His Yasuo was really clean.
Clean?
I mean, he's really clean on it.
Was definitely clean.
Pretty clean.
What do you think?
I mean, I'm definitely honored. I feel like I've gotten so much praise for the Yasuo. I see, like I said this a few times, but I was in Korea as well, and every game people were like writing, "Oh, best swordsman of EU and Yasuo, please," and stuff like this. So.
Are you a one trick? It's okay to be one trick. Most great players are.
Like Vedius.
I mean, right now I'm playing only Kai'Sa. Actually, I'm playing a lot of Nocturne as well, so I'm trying to join Vedius.
What?
I have to ask here, did you notice the Nocturne mid lane because of Vedius?
That may not be the case.
Oh, you're going to make his ego so big.
You had to say no right there. You had to say no. This is bad. I can already hear somewhere Vedi's running around screaming.
Nice to know that you're experimenting with different things. We are getting to look at some things from MSI, by the way. But
I mean, even Korea, and I saw EU was looking at videos now, but they're playing in jungle, you know.
There's no way that's true. There's no way the LCS players look at Vedi's stream.
And then saying, oh, I want to play jungle.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So, Caps, as we look at some outplays of you at MSI, I just want to ask, how has it been for you? You said you got a lot of praise. So how has it been for you to go from all that praise, all that stuff at MSI, and then just come back to earth, right? You went to train, you then had to get ready for the EU LCS. How do you make sure now that you do that for 9 weeks in a row?
So obviously we want to go playoffs again, and we want to win the playoffs. And even though it's like not the best start, I feel like it's all right week one, just because how big the meta change have, and we might not have adapted completely, and we might not be playing as well as a team as we want to. So even if week one might not be the best, I really hope that we can step up our game for week two. And I think by then we want to start improving again, because right now we're just kind of trying to learn new things instead of improving. And then it just comes from the fact that even though we kind of won, I think we won 14-4, and we'd only lost one game playoffs. The games were not like completely one-sided, and I feel like a lot of teams will be much better this split. So we definitely have to improve as well if we want to compete and win the split.
Talking a lot about the team, I initially wanted to know about you because you made so many heads-turn, and I feel like that's finally kind of coming into play, something that's been brewing for 2 years. Because when you came into the LCS, there was a lot of, oh, Caps, he's a prodigy, he'll be great. And
Baby Faker.
Baby Faker didn't really turn out. It was like up and down, and then this year it's just been there all the time. Where do you think your ceiling is? How much do you think you can improve in the next couple of weeks in the ULCS?
So right now I feel like we might, I don't feel like we're in the top right now because, as I said, we haven't even like practiced it, but like we haven't found out all the picks yet, so we can't even be at any level because we don't even play the right champions yet. But I feel like once we start getting there and we can improve, I feel like we can again become to the top and maybe.
Caps, but are you the best?
What about you?
Yeah.
Are you the best mid laner in the world?
Are you going to be the best mid laner again this split?
I mean, right now I'm a jungler, so I don't know about best mid laner. I did win the smite against Max level 1.
Yes,
That's
we
fair.
saw
That was
that.
pretty
We saw that.
That was also very risky. I think you got it on a Q on auto. It was smite to Q auto or something, and you got it. That was cool anyway. I didn't even know what to call him during the game. I was like, yeah, the the carry,
Whatever.
you know.
Yeah.
That's
The
what you
hyper
are now.
carry.
The hyper carry.
I don't think I've lost a single 50-50 smite in scrims yet. Something like that.
All right.
Nice thing to track. So with that, let's take a look at the standings after our first day of play. In the top spots, we have Sjokz, G2 Esports, Giants, Misfits, and Team Vitality. It's 50-50.
It's time to
Clearly,
overreact.
because
I think if you are a Fnatic fan, it's time to panic.
I mean, we're still
Actually,
players.
you're still in playoffs.
Yeah, we're still in
Don't panic yet. Splice fans, however, oh my god, it is looking rough.
Let's turn it on the positive. Your favorite team, Deficio, FC Schalke 04, 1-0. Amazing, is the best player of all time. He is the blue suit.
I was one split too early with the hype.
Yeah.
And potentially I'm a little bit too early again. Look at that man on
Look
your
at Maurice.
screen.
So let's talk about, we can't say too much, right? But can we say anything, Ender, about the addition of Amazing to that roster?
Well, you know, I liked what I saw, honestly. In the early game, he made some mistakes. I don't think even he himself in the interview denied that. But I think in the later stages of the game, he was flashing forward on Camille, finding engagements, and he was up in the top lane when they were backdooring for that inhibitor.
I'm not sold yet. It would be weird if I was after one game.
Yeah.
That game was close. Unicorns actually had some really good early skirmishes where they kind of destroyed Schalke. And then it came down to a stopwatch in the bottom lane from Visichachi on a Cho'Gath when 4 people tried to dive him. And that completely backfired into a Baron, and Schalke was back. Too early to say anything. I did tell the viewers that Amazing was the man who made the call to finish the game, to run straight mid lane. That's the decisive shot calling they were looking for. He sadly told me after he didn't make the call.
Oh, there we go.
But anyway, if anyone who just watched the game, you will never know this. Therefore, Maurice, greatest shot call ever.
All right. Well, definitely want to keep an eye on that developing story because Schalke is one of the teams that we have had very high expectations for. So we'll see if they can keep it up. What else jumps out here? G2 Esports absolutely dismantled Roccat. Caps, did you see anything of that game and what did you think?
Yeah, I saw that game. I feel like I don't really know what to expect because we haven't seen that many games yet, and our scrims are kind of weird. So the Heimerdinger looked good, I guess. The Fiddle Heimerdinger combo kind of took over the game, and then Zoe was really strong later on as well. So it's definitely interesting to see if Heimerdinger is actually a pick now, or if it's just something that you can cheese with once and then people figure out how to counter it. Like maybe don't run over the same ward a few times when you try to gank it, stuff like this.
That's a fair point. I have to ask now, because there's so much about scrimming, you know, who's the best team in scrims in Europe?
So we only scrimmed like 3 teams or something so far.
Okay, the best of those 3 then. Or you won every scrim?
I mean, I think G2 probably is the best of the teams we have scrimmed so far. But it's kind of hard to say because we played them like 2 games.
Right.
But I mean, then again, yeah. But of all the teams we played so far, I think they're the only team who has like a positive win rate against us.
Must be 100% then. 2-0. All right, confirmed. G2 2-0 Fnatic.
Oh God. Okay, so when we look at this, I know it's too early to draw any conclusions, but
Please
can
don't
we draw
force us
any
to
early
it.
conclusions?
No.
Okay, cool. Maybe we'll wait till
Okay,
tomorrow.
you can still play the carries.
Cool. Yes, you can. We saw it. Hans Sama actually completely crushed it on Draven in the interview afterwards. Lore confronted him with Attila saying, if you don't play 80 carries, if you do play 80 carries, you're donezo. And Hans Sama said, well, that's not exactly right. Look at me. So there we go.
Yeah, Hans Sama was like flashing forward in the middle of team fights and just popping off. It looked real good from him.
Didn't account for a Janna Rakan lane.
No.
In the bottom lane. You can definitely play 80 carries against that.
Yes. Let's take a look at our predictions from the experts and me today and see who came out on top. Oh, I'm not even on there because I was too bad. Deficio and Ender are tied. And then the fans only got one correct all day.
No, they got G2 too.
Oh,
That just fakes you out every time.
Sorry, that was my fault.
Still, only
Still,
2 out of 5. Twitter analyst, you got to step up your
Twitter
game.
analyst,
Great job, Deficio.
Yeah, easy.
Twitter analyst,
easy.
I just want to repeat it. Deficio won the prediction vote in spring. He is so smug about it. Whatever. But now you guys have a chance. So every day you can tweet LOL Esports and tweet your predictions. They're also going to tweet it out to remind you guys. But we have to unite against him.
It's a pretty bad start.
That's a pretty bad start. But I have to say there were some things today that you really couldn't account for. Things like the H2K Giants game where H2K looked like they were winning and then just a 0 straight for the base. Like, I don't know. It's very difficult.
Yeah, there was some madness in that game for sure. H2K also sort of got themselves into a hole with the composition where they needed that big one shot, and then Giants just out-team fought them sometimes, and when they lost the team fight, sent Betsy down mid.
Yep.
Most of these predictions end up being kind of random. You know, no one really knows what's going to be played. I think there are only 2 of them where I feel like Ender and I can really take some credit.
Vitality.
Vitality and the Misfits one. Because we know Misfits beats Fnatic in the regular season. It just happens every single time. And I looked at Reckless Solo Queue and I was like, that's not 80 carries. If he's going to play something crazy like an Ornn or a Janna, I don't know how that's going to look. I'm just going to go Misfits here. That seems like the safe one. And Vitality, of course, because new patch, crazy patch, that's their meta.
Yeah, very smug already. Love it. Anyway, let's move on to my favorite part of the show. I'm going to hit you with some Sjokz statements. They might be a little bit out there. They might be just right. You tell me. First up, if Fnatic meets Misfits in the playoffs, they will get knocked out. Spicy. Discuss, Caps. How does this... You already touched on it, that it's best of 1, so it is relatively random, even though it's 3-0 now over the year. So it's starting to get a bit overwhelming for Misfits. But how would that work in a best of 5?
I mean, hopefully in the best of 5 we will have a bit better view at the meta. I feel like if they played us last spring in playoffs, we would probably have beaten them just like we beat the other teams. And coming into summer now, as I said, there's like a lot of improvements in a lot of teams, and it's really hard to predict like how exactly what it's going to happen towards the end of summer. But okay, I'll say this: if 80 carries some meta, then we will 100% beat them in a best of 5.
All right, there we go. That's a good caveat.
I think that's a very nice thing to add, yes.
Yeah.
Well, when 80 carries were meta, which they still are, but when hyper late game 80 carries were used a lot, Misfits, both games when they beat Fnatic, was in late game. One game was not really Hans Sama, it was more Sjokz and Nivea, but the other game was Hans Sama, doing really well. It was very early in the split when Fnatic were kind of figuring out what to do, but they could actually teamfight against them. No other team in Europe have been able to do that. So a best of 5, where if we base it on spring split, Fnatic will not stomp the early game. Misfits might actually get ahead early, and then Misfits tries to close, and then Fnatic tries to win late. That one, I don't know. I'm seeing it in 5 games, but I'll give a 3-2 Fnatic there.
There we go. Caps is not happy with that.
Hey, 3-2, you still advancing. This sounds like a great final to me.
It sounds pretty great.
And they have to make it there, though.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, we're thinking very far ahead. Literally the first...
We're not calling it after one day.
That was a Sjokz statement.
That was, I mean, that hits the spot, doesn't it? The next one, Attila is the best 80 carry in EU in the current meta. Now, this was a guy who already played Ziggs and Crazy Things over in spring, who said that he would bring it, and he brought it today. So, I mean, we can't argue with it for now, at least.
Hey, I love it. Put him on the Heimerdinger, put him on something and shove early on in the game. And Vitality are going to do great with that. I think Attila, he's been outspoken on Twitter about loving this patch and all that stuff. And if we played on patch 8.11 for the rest of the split, I think Vitality would be one of our best teams.
Yeah. Him and Yanin are the best
Heimerdinger
bot lane carries on non-80 carries.
Yeah.
Right now. I don't think he's the best 80 carry. Hansama Draven was pretty nice. Reckless on an AD carry is going to be pretty great. But if it is Heimer, Brand, Lux, Zyra, someone please, that kind of stuff, hell yeah, I'll give it to him or Yanan.
Yeah, I'd love to have a universe where both is possible, but obviously if AD carries are back in
Both
their
are
original...
possible right
but
now.
if AD carries are back in their original position, it becomes much harder to play those other
Slight
things in
buff
lane.
to some crit items maybe on price, and something could happen.
Might happen, but I think
Yasuo in there.
Yeah, maybe.
we can agree that Attila, renamed from Mini Trupax in spring, is someone that we're looking at and would be great for Vitality. Again, last spring they did it. They picked up so many wins and then they just fell short in the third place match, but we got to have high hopes for them. Do you guys want to say anything about your expectations for Vitality? You guys love them. You said you were looking at them. You said they would be the best team in the early season. Where do they end?
So the caveat I'll give along with that is that I think in the spring split, they played a very linear style with a very heavy focus on the early game, and that was found out by teams as the season went on. So if they're going to maintain that level of performance that they had at the start of spring last year, and we saw out of them in this first game today, they need to be able to switch it up week to week.
Okay, Caps, what do you think of Vitality in summer? How far can they go?
I mean, Vitality in spring were kind of like a scary team to face because you never really knew what was going to happen. Even going into playoffs, we were more afraid of playing Vitality than we were playing against G2. Even though we saw Splice beat Vitality, and I'm pretty confident G2 would beat Vitality as well. But we were just more scared of playing against Vitality because we never know what to expect. And going into summer, obviously, I mean, like right now where there's no meta set, there's nothing, you can do anything. It's pretty good buff for them. So I can see them having a pretty good show in the beginning of the split.
I could see another 7-1 start.
Yeah. They'd have to do better then to be better in spring.
I don't think they'll end first place, but I think for sure in the start here they're going to be one of the best teams.
Okay, let's take a look at the last statement. Finally, Heimerdinger and Fiddlesticks is the best bot lane in the meta. We saw it twice and it won twice and it was great.
And it stomped both games. Vanguard early first turret. And both games what happened was the enemy support figured out in his little head, okay, what I need to do is I need to try and engage onto them. This was actually also the AD carry trying to do that. But that's the thing about Fiddle. He has an instant fear. So when you do this, you set up the Heimerdinger to smack rockets, grenades, and a giant turret in your face. So it's actually really hard in a 2v2 to all in on to this, because fear, silence, that kind of stuff. You gotta bring some friends down to that bottom lane.
Exactly. That's the one thing about putting double mages in the bottom lane. Usually they don't have any sort of mobility or ways to escape ganks themselves. So if you do bring multiple members into the bot lane, you can certainly punish it. What I think that G2 did very well in their game where they played the double mage in the bot lane was they had a ton of deep vision to spot out any jungler or mid laner trying to make a roam, and that let them shove in constantly and put down the pressure.
Could we see Fnatic not draft, stupid fly, draft Janna Rakan bot lane, but instead do Heimerdinger Fiddlesticks?
I mean, I guess anything is possible. I think, the meta in EU is still looking a bit different than, like, for example, Korea and stuff like this. And going into next week, we're probably going to experiment with both, like, some of the EU picks that other people playing and some of the picks from Korea. And then we're going to feel like what's working best for us, and then we'll just take it.
Perfect.
Well, one of the interesting things about this is that today, 18 players played a champion they'd never played in their competitive career ever and picked it for the first time on stage. And Joko was talking in his post-game interview also about the fact that, well, I was playing Talia and I'm a jungler. Like, it is really not that easy to just go and play that. And not only about the mechanical side, like you say, but the decision-making process is just a bit different. And that seems to be a huge shift, which I don't think teams can just get used to in the week that they've been training on the patch.
It will take time, but I feel like there are roles in the game who's been in this position for years.
Yeah.
Like, one day you're playing Sion mid lane with Banner of Command. The next game you're playing Lulu. The next game you're playing Syndra. Then you're playing Azir. Like, mid lane has been all around.
So you were saying everyone else should stop whining because mid laners have
I don't think Joko was whining.
I'm kidding.
I think in general, like, the fact that there are new things being played, I'm not 100% sold yet on, like, is it super healthy in every aspect, but the fact that now certain roles have to try and play different styles. Welcome to solo laners for years.
Yes, but then I guess the argument is it's part of the identity of the mid lane that it always changes, it has never been a part of the identity of a marksman in the bottom lane to have to all of a sudden play different champs. Exactly. So I think it's a broader discussion. You were a playtester, Ender, so maybe you want to weigh in here.
Yeah, so it's actually funny because I remember we tested out tons of crazy stuff like double mages in the bot lane because we were actually, you know, trying to get more picks to be viable down there. So, I mean, I remember playing Fiddlesticks in the bottom lane, playing a bunch of Ziggs and Syndra.
But this is a huge success.
And these types of things. Yeah, no, it honestly is. And I think it's very exciting to see, you know, these professional teams playing all this crazy stuff. And for me, I think it's super refreshing also for everyone to watch this new stuff.
What do you think, Caps?
It's like I'm not actually sold like on exactly how I feel about it, but I mean obviously it sucks when you have like the best AD and then he can't play AD carries, but maybe you never know what will happen. Maybe next game Reckless is the one playing Kai'Sa and I'm playing Yasuo AD carries.
Yeah,
So
we'll see.
I mean that kind of. I will say though, while I enjoyed the Heimerdinger games, I didn't enjoy the more defensive bot lane some people picked. Like, I'd rather see an AD carry on 3 items showing his mechanics off in a team fight than I want to see another Ornn in the bot lane or another Janna in the bot lane. Like, for the actual excitement of late game team fights, I do want either AD carries or AP carries to be used by these players like Reckless. I don't need him on a tank in the bot lane. That does not actually excite me for what I know he can do.
I think that's fair in terms of for your pleasure. Also, a final thing maybe about that. I feel like when we're talking about this and we're looking at, haha, oh my God, the meta, and it's funny and interesting picks, but we're all kind of thinking it's not going to last long and stuff like that. But I think maybe also for the teams practicing, they need to get out of that because who the hell knows really, right? And maybe something emerges that sticks around. So a lot of question marks. Let's just keep it at that. But I think that's a fair remark. We do want to see things that have playmaking potential and can kind of show off the prowess of the players.
Ideally, at least.
Ideally. Well, we will see a lot more of the meta tomorrow as we have another 5 games. Roccat takes on H2K in our very first game of the day, followed by, just gotta cheat, Misfits versus the Unicorns of Love. We also have Splice versus G2. That's our, I wouldn't say match of the week, but also a very hype matchup that we're looking at on the second day. So what are you guys looking for here? Is this an easy prediction day?
Ooh. I'd say it looks pretty good. I think I've got, you know, like G2 in the last game, Fnatic over Schalke. I think there's a lot of matchups that you expect to go one way, but
Fnatic
with all the
Schalke?
craziest stuff, I don't know. There's room for teams to surprise me, I think.
Perhaps it might be the year of the duck. What are you going to do for
I'm trying to introduce it again. I started last game.
yeah, I mean I had kind of higher expectations on them last split as well than what they ended up showing, and what I saw from the game they played against Unicorns, I only saw the beginning because then we had to go into the shuttle, but I just saw like amazing Camille and it wasn't looking that good, but I don't know what happened afterwards.
It got a bit better.
Okay.
The shot calling got better.
Yeah,
Okay, the shot calling. So maybe the shot calling is just the key.
Maybe it
Probably.
is. Well, tomorrow we'll be starting things off at 4:30 p.m. Central European Summertime with Ready Check. That is our brand spanking new pre-show, and then right
There's
on
no
the
spanking
hour,
in it. Yet.
if you
When we need more viewers.
tweet #ReadyCheck if you'd want to see
It's
the
happening,
show
Ender.
and that kind of stuff. Anyway, that's tomorrow. That's our brand new pre-show. And then on the hour, our games will start. But for tonight, over in the NALCS Academy, their show is going to start in about an hour with Echo Fox versus FlyQuest. And if you didn't catch all the action from the EULCS, we will have a rebroadcast of the games after the action in Los Angeles, so you can basically watch everything around the clock. That was it. Thank you guys very much for joining me. Thank you, Caps.
Thank you, Caps.
We'll be back tomorrow for more action in the EULCS. See you then.
Oops, stun in the mid. Got a flash over the disarm though. Still the chase from Niski, and he takes him down. ITP now coming in. Billy's gonna go forward, trying to take down the jungle with a lot of the chase. He's in a Heimerdinger, damage is there. Crow Storm coming in, getting taken out one at a time. Defiant dance for Rally, but she's not defying anything. She's just dropping dead.
Is definitely the player of the game.
turn by Joko.
Oh my god, he's gonna do
Who's
it!
gonna do it? The game is going down. Are you kidding me, Giants? Late game king, baby! Call it cheese, call it what you want. Now trying to back up the silence from myself for doing anything here. He needs to get out of this situation, but he is gonna get taken out. Beautiful pick off from Sjokz. They're now set up to take the Baron.
Very good job.
Victory for Sjokz. Good true damage you get off it. Has got Conquo, which seems to be the keystone of choice as well, but as we can see the engagement.
Oh, a big cannon! That's a big cannon!
Did get the second kill of the game.
They come here, okay. I think he's here.
I let you down!
To join in the fight. Jankos may have let down his team though because he's gonna fall. The last breath. Somehow he manages to stay. To destroy Rocket in the top lane. Misfits once again stating their dominance over Fnatic. Chasing Fox underneath the tower. Sjokz gets the final shot.
He's picked his champion earlier, said I can skirmish, I can fight against Caps, and I can be more useful than him in the early game. And he's been there, and that's top lane kill.
Once again! Mickey lands the Binding Hunt. Summer gets his third kill of the game.